Now, the chicks, it's the day for collecting the chicks, or it's the day for receiving the chicks. The brooder was already done 2 weeks before, disinfected 2 weeks before. There are two things that now you really need to pay attention to. Now you paid attention to that. Bring the chicks to the farm. They have arrived in the farm. And this is something that I really want to bring to your attention. In our previous videos, or in our previous farming systems, we used to use glucose. But today, if you know you are transporting chicks for a longer distance, or if you know that your chicks are not going to access water in the next 12 to 20 hours upon collection from the hatchery, then I encourage you that don't. Now, another new tip. Long ago, we used to say that provide lighting for the chicks 24 hours a day. You find that that one is costly to the farmer. And also, it has got some other hidden advantages. Now look here. Before, we used to say that give chicks 45 grams of feed per chick per day for the first 60 days. Give growers 65 grams per chick per day for the next 2 months. That is from day 61 to day 120. But you find that you will not get results. I know there are many other topics that we need to discuss that we can't cover them today, but at least I've covered the main question that guys have been asking me. How can I be able to easily take care of my chicks from day 1 up to 18 months without losing chicks? And I've given you the answers. I love you so much. If you're new to YouTube channel, guys, subscribe, and more classes to come. Now, the chicks, it's the day for collecting the chicks, or it's the day for receiving the chicks. The brooder was already done 2 weeks before, disinfected 2 weeks before. There are two things that now you really need to pay attention to: temperature during transportation of the chicks and temperature in the brooder. Get them right. When you're transporting the chicks, the minimum temperature should be 25 degrees centigrades, and the maximum should be 27 degrees centigrades. In that pickup, or in that van, or in that whatever environment that you're using to transport the chicks, temperature in the brooder should be between 33 and 36 degrees centigrades. This means that have your jiko or your source of heat in the brooder. As the chicks are on the way coming, stabilize, put the heat sources on, and ensure that the temperatures are ranging between 33 and 36 degrees centigrades. But now in the transportation tool or equipment, the temperature should be at most 26 and at least 25 degrees centigrades. This is to minimize losses of chicks or mortality during transportation. During transportation, pay attention to aeration or ventilation. Sometimes we just stack the carton boxes and transport to the farm. You realize that the chicks at the bottom die most. So ensure that you have got even or adequate easy movement of aeration between the carton boxes during transportation. You rather carry a smaller number of chicks but they all reach their destination safe and sound. The other very important thing that you need to pay attention to is a smooth ride. What do I mean by saying a smooth ride? From the hatchery or from the store where you're collecting the chicks to the farm. Sometimes while transporting chicks, you use very bumpy roads. The driver will hit the bumps. There's that sudden braking. When you brake, remember, the chicks move to one side. Then they cause stampede. Then they have much stress. Now you paid attention to that. Bring the chicks to the farm. They have arrived in the farm. And this is something that I really want to bring to your attention. In our previous videos or in our previous farming systems, we used to use glucose. But today, don't use glucose in brooding. As we continue farming, we continue gaining more knowledge and skill. Glucose encourages growth of microorganisms, and this could be hazardous to the birds. So don't use glucose. Another very important tip to pay attention to is don't also use sugar. In some instances like Somalia, we lacked glucose, so we had to use the normal sugar. Don't use sugars. Instead, use vitamins or electrolytes while stabilizing the chicks. So when the chicks have arrived, then it's advisable that you give them water that is rich in vitamins and electrolytes. We have sometimes encouraged that you can introduce a small amount of an antibiotic to the chicks. This is just to cushion the chicks, because during transportation and handling, especially for the big volumes of chicks, during transportation and handling, the chicks could come in contact with some bacteria, and therefore we want to give them a strong start. Long time ago, we used to use, okay, fine, the chicks have arrived, the temperatures have been maintained to stabilize to between 33 and 36 degrees Celsius. What next? Before you do placement of chicks, by the way, first, ensure that you have used carton boxes that are clean, or old newspapers put on the floor. We have got two types of chicks. We have got pre-debeaked chicks and chicks that are not debeaked. If you know you are transporting chicks for a longer distance, or if you know that your chicks are not going to access water in the next 12 to 20 hours upon collection from the hatchery, then I encourage you that don't buy pre-debeaked chicks. You'll have a very high mortality. Just buy the normal chicks. But if you know that your chicks are going to access water within a shorter period of less than 8 hours, then you can buy pre-debeaked chicks. We'll discuss that as a topic another day. Now, when the chicks arrive, you give them water rich in vitamins and electrolytes. Then now it's time to train them to feed. You will feed them on the floor and in the feeders between day 0 and day 7. So give them feed spread on the floor, but put near a feeder, so that they feed on that feed on the floor, but then they start feeding on the feed next to the feeder. That is training the chicks easily without stress on how they can use and feed on a feeder. Now, another new tip. Long ago, we used to say that provide lighting for the chicks 24 hours a day. You find that that one is costly to the farmer. And also, it has got some other hidden advantages. Now look here. I encourage you that between day 0 and day 14, you use something called intermittent lighting program. And before we get into the lighting program, let's pay attention to what type of light are we going to use during chick placement. We encourage using of a bright source of light. A bright source of light encourages the chicks to be able to see the feed easily and also be able to be attracted quickly to the water source so that now they can easily feed and drink. But then continuing from day 14, then use a normal bulb that is not so bright, because when it's so bright, again the chicks' claws or nails in a layman's language will reflect the light and then be attracted to the other chicks, and the other chicks will peck it as a source of feed. When they peck it, then remember it causes a wound, blood starts coming out, and then you'll be introducing cannibalism, and that is what we are really trying to avoid. Now, when I talk of intermittent lighting, what do I mean? That means that in the first early days, you have 2 hours of lighting, 2 hours of darkness, 2 hours of lighting, 2 hours of darkness, 2 hours of lighting, 2 hours of darkness. It is argued that when you have 2 hours of darkness, interchanging in 2 hours of lighting, this gives the chicks a resting period. Okay? When they rest, food is digested evenly in the gut, absorption is high, weight gain is rapid compared to chicks that are active 24 hours. And activeness of the chicks are brought about by 24 hours of lighting. It is also argued that the rest period encourages activity of antibodies, and therefore it increases the immunity of the chicks. They are more immune to diseases or disease-causing agents. It is also cost-effective to the farmer because the reduced lighting hours means that you reduce electricity bill. So make sure that you interchange 2 hours of lighting, 2 hours of darkness, 2 hours of lighting, 2 hours of darkness for the start. So that's a new tip. Now, you have done placement. You have ensured that the temperature is between 33 to 36 degrees centigrade. You have ensured that you are now interchanging the lighting system. You have ensured that you have got the right source of light. You now go to the feed. This is a new secret we are using today. When you are doing brooding, for the first 3 weeks, ensure that you use starter crumbs. Starter crumbs. And at this point, we use broiler starter crumbs for any birds. Reason being, the broiler starter crumbs has got a very high digestibility. It's quickly and easily digested and absorbed into the system. We need to give the chicks a very strong start, Now, the feed is rich in proteins, which are very essential in tissue multiplication and also development of feathers. And that's what we are looking for at this stage. Once the chick develops feathers rapidly, it means we've moved out of the delicate stage whereby the mortalities will be controlled. Once the chick gains weight faster, it means that it becomes more hardy at that stage. Then gradually now go to chick mash or pellets. Then now go to growers. Then now go to pre-layer and layer. Before, we used to say that give chicks 45 grams of feed per chick per day for the first 60 days. Give growers 65 grams per chick per day for the next 2 months. That is from day 61 to day 120. But you find that you will not get results. Why? You might find that you're giving chicks too much feed, they're not consuming, it's becoming a loss. Or the feed is getting moist, there's germination of fungi, becomes toxic to the birds. We have a manual that tells you the amount of feed to give to a chick at a particular age, that is in terms of days, and the amount of weight that chick should gain. So that if you know that day 15, my chick should be eating 32 grams per day, and you should have gained this amount of weight at day 15. That is a good guide, because now you'll control the amount of feed you're giving the chicken, and you will know what is the expected results of giving my chicks this amount of feed during this day. For example, most of us do chicken farming as a side hustle. So we're not on the farm 24 hours. Then it means that you'll employ someone to help you run the farm. Now, some workers are quite funny. They might end up selling some feeds, they are not seeing results, but you'll not know because you're not there. So, if you have this manual and you are able to see that my chicks have not gained this weight in day 17, yet they are feeding this amount of feed, then something must be wrong. You might either be overfeeding them or underfeeding them. And so, this one is a yardstick that will guide you with your presence or without your presence, because at this stage, these chicks are not laying. So how am I able to know that I'm doing well? You weigh them every weekend, compare with the manual weight, and be able to see that, okay, fine, I'm doing well. Now, there are things that you really need to pay attention to. The feeding. Before, we used to give our chicks starter crumbs or chick mash, growers mash, then layers mash. That's it. Give the chicks starter crumbs, then mash or pellets, then grower mash, pre-layer mash or layer pellets, then laying mash or pellets. That is the current program. We are introducing the pre-layer feed because this pre-layer feed prepares the bird for laying. A good example, it is rich, so much rich in lime. The lime is stored in the medullary bones as a calcium, which shall be used in formation of shell, whether it's even in deficit at that time, because you could be giving feed that is not having sufficient amounts of calcium. Therefore, the deficit there will be extracted from the deposits in the medullary bones or the stores, then be used to form a smooth shell for the eggs. Those are some of the vital things that you need to pay attention to. The others, we've been talking about them so much in our videos continuously. For example, the types of drinkers to use, how to suspend them in back. They should be suspended in line with the back of the chicken. During brooding of chicks, you can use the round feeders simply because the stool is separated from the feed. The chicks can't have their stool mixing with the feed, so that you can bring about things like coccidiosis. And by the way, why I encourage farmers to use also starter crumbs is because if you're using starter crumbs to brood your chicks, you'll not use liquid paraffin in the feed. When you're using in the water, when you're using liquid paraffin in the water, you'll find that the liquid paraffin forms a coat above the water. As the chicks drink, their beak is smeared with the liquid paraffin. As it fits on the feed, the liquid paraffin covers the beak because it's now pasty. When it comes in contact with the feed, forms something like a paste, brings about choking, and even brings about losing of the chicks to some extent. But if you use the pellets, the crumbs, they are so soft, quickly digestible, and the stool coming out is smooth and does not bring a result of doing what? Blocking of the anal sphincter. That's the reason why we use the liquid paraffin before. But that's the reason why now I encourage you to use the starter crumbs, because now once you use the starter crumbs, there is no clogging and soiling of the anal sphincter. Now, as a farmer, you have paid attention to all those good routine management practices to the chicks. Then it comes to the other thing. How do I control diseases from attacking my flocks? Prevention is better than cure. Therefore, this brings us to vaccination. How do I vaccinate the chicks? I have shared a link below this video of the correct vaccine program. We've been using it for years and it is giving us results. In the same video, I discuss how to handle vaccines. Remember, poor handling of vaccines brings the disease on the farm. Let us look at this thing of using antibiotics anyhow. Don't give antibiotics to chicks that are not sick. Don't give antibiotics to chicks that have not been exposed to a risk. Some of us use antibiotics anyhow. Just go buy also use, buy this one, use. Unless the chick or the chicken is suffering from disease X, and you can only be able to know it is disease X out of experience or by consulting an experienced vet or practitioner or an experienced fellow farmer who can then advise you this is disease X. That's when you can use antibiotic X. Some of you just use antibiotics haphazardly in a way that you can even start by using a very strong antibiotic to treat a very simple disease, and the chick gains resistance to that disease drug, whereby when the chick now suffers from a serious infection, there is no good antibiotic to use to treat the bird. So just don't use medication simply because you want to use it or someone else use it. No, that is not encouraged. Now, it is very important then that you pay attention to biosecurity so that you can avoid all these other diseases coming along the line. For example, don't allow visitors on the farm any other time. Anyone is coming, bring. Remember, we carry diseases from our clothes, from our boots. And therefore, if a friend is coming to the farm, then he has to be thoroughly disinfected in order to visit the farm. I know there are many other topics that we need to discuss that we can't cover them today, but at least I've covered the main question that guys have been asking me. How can I be able to easily take care of my chicks from day 1 up to 18 months without losing chicks? And I've given you the answers. I love you so much. If you're new to YouTube channel, guys, subscribe, and more classes to come on Poultry Matters.